apparently Prince Harry is going to come back to the UK.
Have long been suggesting that Meghan and Harry are just quietly putting it out into the real estate world that really they want to get rid of this mansion, that a move is very much on the cards.
Decision has been made yet about whether Meghan or the children will travel from California to join Harry during the visit.
And so he's trying to integrate slowly back into the royal family.
So a really good example of how financially challenged they are. It's almost unheard of to buy a house in Montecito and just move into it, right? You buy a house and you do like a $7 million remodeling job. You know, the reality is, they're financially, they're a joke out there. I mean, they are the poorest rich guys in the room, you know.
Same week, two storylines. One is a growing suspicion among royal commentators that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle could be quietly moving their Montecito mansion toward a sale, without ever putting it on the open market. The other is a report that Harry is heading back to Britain, planning to stay inside royal residences every few months, starting this September. Put those two stories next to each other and a question starts to form. Is this a couple falling apart? Or is this a couple running out of road on two continents at once? Because with this pair, nothing lands in isolation anymore. Every headline gets read against the last 5 headlines. And this week, the pattern the reporting keeps pointing to isn't romance, reconciliation, or royal drama for its own sake. It's money. Here's what's actually being reported, what's actually confirmed, and what it adds up to. Start with the house. According to Hello magazine, picked up by the Daily Mail, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce have reportedly been browsing property listings in Montecito, the same coastal California enclave Harry and Meghan have called home since 2020. On its own, that's a real estate story. Montecito is already home to a long list of A-listers, Oprah Winfrey among them, and it's the kind of town where privacy comes standard and security blends into the landscape. Swift and Kelce, newly married, are reportedly looking for somewhere to eventually raise a family, with good schools and low crime. Montecito checks every box on that list. It would check the box for almost anyone with that kind of money, but calling Swift and Kelce potential neighbours for Harry and Meghan skips over one detail. They've been photographed backstage with the Prince and Princess of Wales, not the Sussexes, and commentators have pointed to that as evidence they've already picked a side in the family rift.
But I think trying to link Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift is ludicrous. I mean, Taylor and Travis have absolutely picked a side, right? So if they...
It's also worth remembering Meghan reportedly sent Taylor Swift a handwritten note years ago trying to get her onto the Archetypes podcast.
Remember, Meghan, and this is when she was still big enough to attract some stars, was so desperate to get Taylor Swift on the Archetypes podcast. She wrote her that handwritten missive. And
separately tried to meet her backstage at a concert. Neither invitation appears to have gone anywhere.
That you keep showing Taylor backstage with the Waleses, because I had broken the news years ago that Meghan attended a Taylor Swift concert and very desperately wanted to go backstage to say hello, and she was rebuffed with the note saying Taylor just rests her voice before every
And that so
concert.
isn't true. That's so...
So if these two ever do end up in the same zip code, don't expect a joint barbecue.
Steps. There certainly wouldn't be any little as-ever barbecues between those two couples.
What actually makes this a story isn't the celebrity name, it's the timing. The Swift-Kelce reporting landed in the same stretch as commentary from royal watchers who've suggested, based on nothing more concrete than reading between the lines, that Harry and Meghan could be quietly signalling they want out of the Montecito house without a formal listing, without an agent's sign on the lawn. It's an interpretation, not a confirmed report. But it's the interpretation now sitting next to a very real story about who might be shopping in the same zip code.
But of course, Resting Dollface and Nancy Sidley have long been suggesting that Meghan and Harry are just quietly putting it out into the real estate world that really they want to get rid of this mansion, that a move is very much on the cards.
That detail matters more than who might move in next door, because when people this famous sell a house, they usually sell it loudly. A listing, a price, a bidding war covered breathlessly by property blogs. Quiet is the unusual part. Quiet is what happens when you'd rather not be seen needing to sell. Worth a second look too, with a bit of skepticism, at how convenient the framing is. Montecito already has Oprah Winfrey and a long list of other names most people would recognise. A couple with money looking at real estate that isn't inherently newsworthy. It becomes newsworthy the moment it gets stitched together with, just like Harry and Meghan, because that's the version of the story that travels. Which is exactly why it's worth asking whether this is a real estate trend being reported, or a real estate trend being used to smuggle in a much bigger claim about the Sussexes without anyone having to say it directly. Except that's not confirmed either. Sources describing themselves as realtors working in the area have pushed back hard on the idea the house is actually for sale. Their claim the property isn't listed and the kids are enrolled in school there for the current year, which makes an imminent move logistically awkward at best.
Years, who knows? But I have very good sources who are realtors in that area, and that house is not up for sale. The kids are enrolled in school for the next couple years, or at least this.
So where does that leave the rumour? Not dead, just unresolved. And unresolved is actually the more interesting place for it to sit, because it means both things can be true at once. The house might not be formally on the market this week, and the couple might still be under exactly the kind of financial pressure that would eventually force that decision anyway. There's a smaller detail buried in all this that's easy to miss. Commentators covering the property market have noted it's almost unheard of to buy into Montecito and simply move in. The usual move is to buy, then sink several million more into a full remodel before anyone's actually living there. By multiple accounts, that never happened here. The interior is reportedly still much as it was when the previous owner left it.
So a really good example of how financially challenged they are. It's almost unheard of to buy a house in Montecito and just move into it, right? You buy a house and you do like a $7 million remodeling job, right? To make it all up to date. You don't take the sort of, we've seen the insides of the house. Yeah. It's hideous. It's absolutely hideous.
That's not proof of anything on its own. But hold on to it, because by the end of this video, the financial pressure part stops being speculation. Now, the other headline. According to The Times, Harry is reportedly planning to return to the United Kingdom every few months over the next year.
Back and pops up at the most inconvenient times. And this is the case as being reported by Roy and Nika of The Times. Apparently, Prince Harry is going to come back to the UK with
a September visit that reportedly includes a stay at Buckingham Palace.
Very happy and really energized. He's returning in September for a week to do some Invictus Games promotion and for
the official framing is charity. Harry remains patron of Well Child, which supports seriously ill children, and he's expected to ramp up his involvement with the Invictus Games ahead of next summer's event in Birmingham, alongside continued support for the Halo Trust and Scotty's Little Soldiers. All of that is real, and none of it is nothing.
Is perfectly respectable because he wants to see his family more often and provide greater support to Britain charities, including Well Child, the Invictus Games, the Halo Trust, and Scotty's Little Soldiers. But
royal commentators reading the pattern have landed on a less charitable interpretation. The read isn't simply Harry is doing more charity work. The read is Harry is doing more charity work as the vehicle for something else.
And with our third eyeball, because frequent visits would achieve much more than a few charity meetings. It would. They would allow Harry to rebuild his public profile in Britain, repair damaged family relationships, and slowly reinsert himself into royal life without ever having to announce a formal comeback.
Regular visits, staying inside actual royal residences instead of a hotel. Time with his father. None of it requires an announcement. None of it requires the palace to say a single word about restored titles or a formal return. It just requires showing up again and again until the public stops noticing that he's showing up at all. That's not a new playbook either. The late Queen was reportedly clear that a half-in, half-out arrangement, 1 foot in royal life and 1 foot out, wasn't something she'd allow for a working member of the family. But there's a well-worn template for easing someone back in without ever calling it that. It's the same slow drip approach that reportedly brought Camilla into public acceptance, birthday by birthday, appearance by appearance, until absence quietly turned into presence, and nobody could point to the exact day it changed.
We all remember how it started when Camilla was introduced to the public and Charles threw Camilla a very expensive 50th birthday. It was to send a signal.
Going to start seeing him show up to more family events.
Some royal commentators have gone further, speculating Harry could start turning up at set-piece national moments, things like Remembrance Day, or the state opening of Parliament, or a garden party here and there.
Attending things like
maybe perhaps the Remembrance Day, maybe the state opening of Parliament, maybe he'll attend some royal garden parties, or maybe he'll attend a Commonwealth Day.
None of that is confirmed. It's informed guesswork about where this pattern logically goes next. But the through line across all of it is the same. Visibility without a formal title, proximity without accountability, all of it running through his father specifically rather than through the working royals currently doing the job full time. Here's the detail that complicates the tidy version of this story. Per the reporting, no decision has been made about whether Meghan or the children will travel with Harry on these visits. Given the school calendar, it's being described as unlikely, at least for now.
Decision has been made yet about whether Meghan or the children will travel from California to join Harry during the visit. Given that it's school year, probably not so much.
So whatever this UK push is, it's a Harry project, not a joint one. And that's worth sitting with, because if the goal were genuinely full family reconciliation, a healed relationship with the institution he walked away from, it's a strange plan that only includes one half of the marriage. Which brings the story to the part nobody's been connecting to any of this. Because while the house rumour circulated and the UK visit reports landed, Meghan's latest project was quietly falling apart in a very public way. The documentary is called Cookie Queens, and Meghan came on board as an executive producer. According to reporting on how the deal came together, the production team is said to have brought her and Harry in partly hoping the attention would help land a Netflix release, the streamer behind a deal with the couple reportedly worth around $100 million. Instead, Netflix looked at the finished film and passed.
The reason they were brought in as executive producers, which is usually just a money role or a title role, is because the producers thought they could get their movie into Netflix. And Netflix took one look at it and said, no, thank you. You are welcome to shop it elsewhere.
It went to Sundance without a distributor attached, found no buyers there either, and eventually got picked up by a much smaller company just to get it into theaters at all.
And so they went to Sundance, there were no buyers. Finally, a smaller company bought it and released it. But it was just woeful and embarrassing.
Once it opened, the numbers told their own story. On its best day that week, the film pulled in just over $118,000 nationwide. By the following Monday, that had fallen to just over $40,000. By Tuesday, it had crept back up to a little under $50,000. Spread across the theatres still showing it, the average take per screen dropped to under $500. The kind of number that gets a film pulled to make room for whatever else is playing that week.
And it's not improving. Now, I know you can say, okay, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday isn't as big at the box office as Friday, Saturday. But given Friday, Saturday was so bad, really, if the cinemas were going to keep the movie playing, they would need to see some type of word of mouth buzz, wouldn't they? And they're not seeing that, Paula, because on Sunday, it took $118,454. That slumped on Monday to $40,614, up a little bit on Tuesday to $49,152. But the damning statistic, Paula, is actually it's in a lot of theatres, right? Which means that the average taking per theatre for Cookie Queens is now down to $466.80.
Commentators pointed out it was reportedly outperformed that same week by a documentary made entirely out of internet cat videos.
More embarrassing and damning is that Meghan's movie was beaten by a cat compilation video. It was literally a documentary, I use that very term loosely, about a bunch of internet cat videos just slammed together. And that is, to me...
The film was also, by multiple accounts, not the sweet family story it was marketed as. Early reviewers out of Sundance described it as having real dark undertones, centered on kids competing to raise enough money just to afford summer camp, a considerably heavier premise than the trailers suggested.
It's really about rich kids versus poor kids, and how these poor children, the poor ones, not the rich ones, are vying to make enough money to go to summer camp. So, no, it's actually quite dark. And there's a lot of dark undertones, which is what the initial reviewers always brought up when it was...
And it invites a question that's followed Meghan through more than one project, which is whether the research gets done before the name goes on it. One widely shared piece critical of the film pointed out that while it follows girls selling cookies for roughly $1 of profit each, it never once turns the camera on Girl Scouts USA's own leadership, where the current CEO's total reported compensation sits at close to $1 million a year.
That salary looks modest next to current CEO Bonnie Bakwazi's total compensation of about $955,000 per the latest IRS form. That's base pay, bonuses, housing allowance, and benefits. Other top national executives regularly earn high six figures, yet the girls and families do all the hard work of selling cookies. Troops keep only about $1 per box. The rest fund.
It's not the first time that pattern has shown up. Archewell reportedly donated more than $50,000 to an organisation later found to be headed by a controversial figure, and the money was reportedly pulled only after the connection became public.
We saw that with Archewell in the fact that she gave over $50,000 of Archewell money to an organization that was headed by an Islamist, and then was like, oops, and once it was made public by yours truly, they...
Different project. Same shape. Attach the name first, ask the questions later, if at all. There's also a basic math problem sitting underneath the whole release. Documentaries of this type typically run somewhere between $200,000 and $600,000 to produce, sometimes more once editing, post-production, and promotion get added on top.
And it looks like for the most part, most productions for documentaries range between $200K and $600K. I imagine,
which is reportedly the stage where Harry and Meghan's involvement actually began. By the time a distributor takes its cut, theatres take theirs, and whatever's left gets split among a dozen or so producers, the actual return on a film pulling in $500 a night per screen isn't close to covering the investment.
argue, given the cut theaters take, the distributor takes everything, and that the cost is split among 12 producers or something like that, I don't think Harry and Meghan are going to make any money on this film whatsoever. And they're not.
Whatever they put into this one, the honest expectation is pennies back on the dollar, not profit. If this kind of breakdown, pulling the actual reporting apart instead of just repeating the headline, is useful to you, the subscribe button does a lot of the heavy lifting for this channel. Costs nothing, takes 2 seconds. Back to it. Now put all of that in one place. A streaming deal that stopped generating headline projects. A documentary that couldn't find a real distributor and was reportedly outperformed by a cat video compilation. And this week, a promotion for Meghan's As Ever wine line, asking customers to buy 12 bottles, more than $300, just to unlock 3 free ones.
as ever as an example. So Meghan Markle has put up this weekend that if you buy 12, that's 2 bottles of her wine, and you can get 3 additional ones for free. That's $300+ guys. I think 336. So $336 and you get 3 free.
That's not the structure of a brand selling itself easily. Buy 3, get 1, sells itself.
And instead of doing the smart thing, which is selling 3 and then you get 1 for free, instead Meghan Markle is making people buy a cartload of her wine in order to get just 3 lousy free ones.
Buy 12 to get 3 is the deal you run when the 12 aren't moving on their own. Then there's Harry's side of the ledger, and it isn't just about money, it's about credibility too. Following his loss in the phone hacking case against a major UK newspaper group, that publisher is reportedly seeking to recover as much as $75 million in legal costs.
A total disaster for Prince Harry as the publishers of the Daily Mail newspaper seek to remove a spending cap which could leave the Duke with unlimited liability on legal costs. Now, Paul Dacre, the man in charge of the Daily Mail and its associated titles, is seeking to retrieve up to $75 million.
A bill that could land on Harry directly if the court finds his case wasn't brought in good faith.
That's right, and there is a concern that the insurance, which wasn't going to cover the totality of legal costs, may not be forthcoming at all. Because of that flimsy evidence, the insurers could argue that this was not conducted in good faith and it was never a solid case in the first place. So Harry could be on the hook.
Part of why that argument has legs. Harry reportedly told the court he'd never attended a festival, only for opposing lawyers to point out he wrote about doing exactly that in his own memoir.
But I think so, Kelvin, to interrupt you, I think you can safely say that Harry lied in court. So, for example, he said he'd never been to a festival, and then it was the quick response from the lawyer acting on behalf of the Daily Mail was to say, well, you wrote about going to a festival in your book Spare.
He's also on record saying he cuts off contact with anyone the moment he learns they're a journalist, a claim that sits awkwardly next to a reported years-long friendship with a woman who's now an editor at one of the papers he sued.
What about the mystery around his friendship, or even more than that, with Charlotte Griffiths, who's now the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday? Harry said he didn't know who she was. He found out she was a journalist. He cut off all contact. Turns out they've had...
None of that decides the case, but it's the kind of detail that makes a $75 million demand feel less like a long shot. Suddenly, the house rumour doesn't look like an isolated real estate story anymore. It looks like one visible piece of a much bigger picture, where the entertainment deals have slowed, the product lines need aggressive discounting to move, and a 9-figure legal bill might be sitting on the horizon. Whether or not that specific Montecito mansion changes hands this year, the financial pressure underneath the rumour is documented, not speculation. And it's the same pressure that would explain far better than sudden family warmth exactly why Harry might want a closer relationship with a father who controls considerably more resources than a struggling production company.
They are so broke. Financially, the couple are a laughingstock in Montecito. A really good example.
One line from commentary covering their finances this week summed it up bluntly.
You know, the reality is, they financially, they're a joke out there. I mean, they are the poorest rich guys in the room, you know.
The poorest rich guys in the room. Harsh, but it points at something real. There's a difference between having assets and having income.
Are land rich, not actually cash rich. There's a difference. So the royals have
And reportedly, a meaningful chunk of what's funded the Montecito lifestyle has been capital, not earnings, inheritance, and settlement money slowly being drawn down rather than replaced. Spend down capital long enough without new income behind it, and eventually the math stops working, no matter how large the number looked at the start.
They are so broke. I mean, maybe they can eke out 5 years in California. I mean, I think that's being generous and being friendly. And The problem is that if they're spending the capital, as anybody knows, the last thing you can do is you can spend your capital. All that capital needs to be invested, generating a little.
It's also worth being clear about what King Charles can and can't do here, because his father will bail him out gets repeated as if it's simple. Royal wealth is mostly land and property held in trust for the institution, not a personal bank account Charles can freely dip into. There may be some room to help. There isn't a spare fortune sitting around waiting to be handed over.
This idea that Charles has a bunch of money he can throw at them is definitely a misnomer. He has some money he can use to support them, probably the same money he would have used to support them if they had stayed with the royal family. But he doesn't have endless cash to throw at them. And the idea of Harry and Meghan, quote unquote, working as royals and yet also doing commercial endeavors.
Underneath all of it sits a perception problem that isn't improving. According to YouGov's most recent quarterly figures, just 18% of people in Britain now view Meghan positively. The lowest number recorded since polling began tracking her. 61% view her unfavourably.
According to YouGov's latest quarterly ratings, just 18% of Brits now view the Duchess of Sussex positively, the lowest she has ever registered, while a crushing 61% view her unfavourably.
That number landed in the same stretch as a run of birthday posts that had royal watchers doing a double take, including a photo of Meghan leaping into a pool, clutching balloons, a pose strikingly similar to a famous decades-old photograph of Princess Diana jumping into the ocean.
Diana is backfiring badly. The number landed just as Meghan marked her birthday with a string of posts that had royal watchers doing double takes, a tutorial on building an ice cream sundae in parfait glass, a kitchen dance in a plastic happy birthday tiara, and most eyebrow-raising of all, a photo of her leaping into a pool, clutching balloons in a pose strikingly similar to a famous decades-old shot of Princess Diana.
Alongside it, an astrologer's post describing the last 7 years as among the hardest of her life, and framing an upcoming date as the moment the pressure finally lifts.
And she posted this week, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio and Aquarius ending the hardest 7 years of their lives on April 25th.
Whatever the intent behind any of that, it lands strangely next to the facts. The last 7 years also happened to include a streaming deal reportedly worth 9 figures, a Netflix documentary series, magazine covers, and a level of global fame most people spend entire careers chasing. As one columnist in The Times put it, walking back through what those years actually contained, isn't that the stuff of wildest dreams?
Make out the past 7 years have combined idyllic family life with global fame and non-stop, lavishly monetized photo opportunities. Isn't that what Meghan always wanted? Isn't that the stuff of wildest...
Calling that stretch unbearable is a hard sell to an audience that's watched it happen in real time. It's a positioning problem more than a facts problem. Nobody's disputing that public criticism is unpleasant to live through. The disconnect is scale. Framing 7 years that included a 9-figure deal and global magazine covers as comparable to genuine hardship doesn't read as relatable. It reads as tone deaf to an audience that's watching the same 7 years from the outside. And when the branding keeps reaching for Diana specifically, a woman genuinely hemmed in by an institution she couldn't leave, with no deal, no brand, no exit available to her, the comparison invites exactly the kind of scrutiny it's supposedly trying to avoid.
Stand them, right? And she comes in the can't stand, I literally cannot stand that woman, right? And when you can't stand somebody, male or female, they only have to be within about 2 or 3 yards of you, and you feel great sort of tension begin to in your tummy, right? And actually you do well with some of those Dalek machines.
So back to the 2 headlines this started with. Is the Montecito mansion actually going up for sale? Not confirmed. Not yet. Is Harry actually moving back in with the royal family? Not officially, and not with Meghan, at least for now.
And so he's trying to integrate slowly back into the royal family.
But treat those as the whole question, and the story gets smaller than it should. The reporting this week isn't really about a house listing or a change of address. It's about a couple managing decline on 2 fronts at once. One financial, one reputational, and doing both as quietly as 2 of the most photographed people on Earth are able to manage. Whether that ends with a sold house, a full-time return to royal life, or neither, one thing seems true either way. The version of this story that makes the headlines isn't the one that explains what's actually happening underneath it. And if this channel is where you want that explanation, hit subscribe because this story is a long way from finished.